back from the break, and now here is an issue that we both hold very close to our hearts, which is regulations about noise and all that sort of business. For you, it's venues and the SB and everything else. For me, to a certain degree, it's students. Okay, the local music, the young kids learning drums on the street. Oh, we've got a drummer in the street. Bang, let's ring the council. So we actually both went to the Music Victoria EPA consultation session just Wednesday past, and pretty much it was an all-afternoon affair. And Suzi, what's your take on the whole thing? There's going to be new regulations put into place. Apparently it's the first time in about 3 decades that...
Yeah, well, that was what I did find that interesting.
Yeah.
Noise restrictions actually didn't come in until 1971. So I think one of there's so many great takeaway points from the meeting on Wednesday. The way that we live has changed since 1971. They talked about, in the current EPA guidelines, they're talking about occasional MCG concerts by David Bowie and people like that who unfortunately aren't with us anymore. So the relevancy of the Act as it is doesn't reflect our current lifestyles. People have moved back into the inner city. We're now living above venues. We're living above shops. We're living in retail and in, well, what should be entertainment precincts.
Yeah, that's right.
Was something that was brought up. The EPA laws, I think my biggest issue at the moment is the ambiguousness of who's enforcing what in regards to noise restrictions. There's several people. We've got police, council officers, the EPA, liquor licensing, all monitoring and asking for us to comply with their orders. Now, we to be honest, I'm still confused.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like one of the things that happened on Wednesday, I suppose, is that the EPA seems to be more involved with not policing or anything like that, but giving out permits for anything that goes beyond, I think it was a 5-hour limit for festivals or some such thing or whatever, which can be a little bit...
it's quite constrictive.
Yeah, it's a little bit. One of the things is what you've just hit on is the subjectivity, I think is one of the words that got brought up. About what is noise to one person, what is music to another, what is fantastic for other people.
That's right, rock and roll ain't noise pollution.
Yeah, and one of the things was that I saw as a welcome development to a certain degree was actually taking it out of a council officer's hands of it being subjective. Oh, that's too loud, stop. Whereas now we're having decibel levels being thrown at, and all that sort of stuff. And having said that, there's some decibel levels there that you probably heard me go, what? Yeah. 40 decibels? That's that kind of thing.
So again, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
That who actually sets those decibel levels?
Yeah.
Who decided it was 50 dBs or 80 dB?
Just for interest, they put up a slide. It was 40 decibels at night.
And we were measuring in the room.
And I've got a decibel measurement on my phone. And just the way that we're talking now runs at between 65 and 70. So if we were doing this on a park bench at 1 a.m. coming out of a venue, I mean, it could.
Yes.
But the thing about it is it's overall. So there's still a bit of development, I think.
That's the problem with some of the venues that I work with in St Kilda, for example, is these are blanket laws. So if I'm in a residential street in Rowville, or I'm in a venue in St Kilda that's considered in a residential area, same laws apply.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I work with a venue who is out the front of Luna Park. There's trams going past. These things trigger the limiters that we have to use when,
that's right.
It's a whole other aspect of it. But, it's quite random, and it's great that the EPA is updating its laws, but I am concerned that they're not taking into account the entertainment precinct aspect of it. I really hope that they do take that into account, because, as I said, we are living in zones that are
that's right.
producing music, and you work you're a music teacher, so there's new laws that are going to affect you as well.
No, that's right. I mean, one of the things that I find with venues and the changing landscape is that, like when you're in a place like St Kilda or Brunswick and all that sort of stuff, what happens is there's the pub that's been there forever.
Yeah.
Next door is the panel shop, industrial area, and Dad retires. There's no son taking over the panel shop. He's a lawyer now.
Yes.
He's gone to university. So it gets sold off to developers. The next thing,
Residential.
you've got 4 layers, and
You've got the block.
And the block, and balconies facing the pub.
Yeah.
Now you've got to wonder why people would complain. Oh, we didn't realise it was going to be so loud. Back in my day, I mean, you already know that my father ran the Prince of Wales Hotel in the 50s into the 60s, and then he moved on to the Dan O'Connell doing all the Irish music. Now in those days, if a house came up for sale next to a pub, it was snapped up like that because it was seen to be that was the centre of attention. It was like, wow, so it was one of those things. And now it's almost like turned around somewhat now.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I've wanted to introduce in regards to that is a buyer beware. So we've seen
that's a good point.
agent of change has come in. That hasn't been as effective as I'd hoped it would be because people like the Prince of Wales are still affected by noise complaints.
Yeah.
And obviously no one's been living there longer than the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
So that's quite disappointing.
Well, I've got a photo up on my wall from the 1950s, so
Yeah. But they didn't have noise restrictions in the 1950s.
No, you just went for it then.
Look, the buyer beware clause, I think that's something that real estate agents really need to take on board.
Yeah.
And because they are showing people properties during the day when there isn't live music happening. So what you're seeing at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and what's happening at 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening is a very different
Very much so.
landscape. So responsibility does need to be taken by many parties, and I think real estate does need to own up to that.
Yeah, I
and
think
not
so
be
too.
selling properties to people and hiding the fact that there is going to be a live music venue.
It's a kind of a thing where, like those kinds of laws, I mean, even if you're renting a property, there's always that thing, no pets allowed.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. There's also right underneath it, just be...
No amplification.
No, only acoustic drums.